Hey everybody, DisThunder here. Today we're going to take a look at the Mezco 112 Collective Wolverine and Deadpool, or the Deadpool and Wolverine figure from the aforementioned movie. Funny thing about that movie, I was thinking about just the other day. Is it weird? It seemed like it was everywhere for about 6-7 months, and now feels like it's rarely talked about. Maybe, I don't know, it would be fair to call it like a flash in the pan, but it definitely had its moment, and then it just kind of sidestepped, and we don't really hear a lot about it since. Regardless, no doubt everybody, we waited 25 plus years to see Hugh Jackman in a Wolverine costume, and it did deliver on that, if nothing else. And some other fun moments. I mean, I might actually have to rewatch it, talking about it here. But that's really an aside. The important thing here is this Wolverine costume is probably the best version we could have asked for in a cinematic setting. I really don't think there's a whole lot I would have done differently design-wise, and that definitely helps the figure out because there's really nothing about this figure that I would change as far as looks go. I know we're going to probably talk about the bare-armed look, but that's not really super important right now. I am fairly confident that's something we're going to see later, especially if this figure did well, which seems like it did. Seems like it sold out pretty quickly. So I imagine that's a conversation we'll be having, I don't know, maybe 6-7 months down the road. And honestly, I truly hope that's the case because as it sits right now, if you missed out on this figure during its pre-order window, a second opportunity, even as a variant, would be welcome because this is a figure even the most casual Marvel fan that collects in 112 should own. No question about it. Getting into the articulation part of this review, I think a lot of people are going to be surprised at how well this figure actually moves, although it does take some work. Starting with the double-jointed neck, which is going to come into play more later, obviously, as you will see. There is a lot of play at work here. There's a lot of range for swivel, side to side, up and down, reaches back very well, and thanks to that double joint, you can actually bury his chin using both joints really well. I think this is an improvement over most previous figures, and that may just be because of the swappability, but we'll see as we get into it more. Similarly to the last Wolverine that we got, this shoulder pauldron is on a ball joint that's attached to the shoulder joint itself, and that does make movement a little bit easier. You can see it go out pretty well, and forward is actually better than you think. It's more the costume that's hitching us up right there than it is the joint itself. And as I've been playing with this, I've noticed over time it is improving as far as the range goes. It's still awfully tight right now, but it's getting better. There is a bicep joint swivel right there, and it is tight, but it does work well. Solid double-jointed elbow there, actually, and the usual hinge and swivel wrist that you've come to expect. Similarly with the torso, this is where I think he's the tightest right now, but I've also seen people do some pretty good stuff with it already. The crunch range forward between the two joints is not fantastic, but it's not terrible. The reach back is not bad. And as you're beginning to see here, part of the reason for this is because he has like a vest piece that goes over the costume, which is almost sorry, trying to record with kittens in the room. That almost guarantees they're going to be using it for a sleeveless version down the road, I'm thinking. There is a waist joint. It's more of a suggestion at this point, but as it's loosening up, it's getting a little better. For the hips, you've got just shy of 90 degrees outward, forward in this case. It's getting better. Outward is pretty good, but then we come to that double jointed knee, and you can see the material flex significantly here, and that is allowing for a pretty deep bend as far as that double jointed knee goes. So that's giving me hope that as I play with the figure more, it's going to flex, because that's pretty damn good. Coming down to the boot swivel, you can see there is in fact a boot swivel. It's a little tight, but there's some motion there. The ankles have a really good tactile feel to them, where it's like they're rigid, but they allow for a lot of forward, back, and side to side. Overall, I think the texture of the suit was making me think this was going to be a little harder to move than it really is, but there's definitely some elasticity to the suit and the design, so it definitely is one of those, the more you break it in, the better posing you can get out of it. All I would recommend is just take your time with it, be patient, don't force it, don't leave it out in that Midwest sub-zero temperature, and I think you'll be okay. Going through his accessories, I'm going to dispense going over the slash effects because I've now reviewed them, I think, 3 times, but they are included. There's 3 of them. This is the masked yelling head, obviously, and it's pretty damn good. Here is the more stoic masked head, which is kind of the default option for the masked look. But again, I think the likeness is very strong. I especially like the paintwork around the eyes. It gives it that kind of uncanny realism. And lastly, of course, here is the gritted teeth look, which is my favorite of the 3 masked heads. Not that there's a bad one in the bunch, but There's just something about this one that just conveys it perfectly. We have some hand options as well. We have some clawed and unclawed. For the clawed versions, we have this kind of open, sort of relaxed grip with the claws fully extended. We have the ever-important fist clawed version hands, which, for what it's worth pointing out, the texture-wise and the paint and just the lining on this matches the plastic of like the gauntlet and even the blues of the suit extremely well. All these hands do. And then, of course, there is a more aggressive open grip hand. There is one of each for both sides, of course, if you were wondering. So 6 in total, if you're keeping count. For the claws retracted, you have a relaxed hand like this one here. This actually is kind of a grip hand, and I believe this is the one that's intended for use with the extra mask, as shown here. Although it's not like a form fit like we've seen some other figures, so I don't know 100% that's the intended hand, but it works fine, especially for what we're doing here. I do like this inclusion of having this mask. Kind of wish we had one to put behind his head, but that's actually not from the movie, so it's fair. Then there is a slightly more open gripping hand, maybe more of a gesturing hand. I don't know how you guys classify all these damn things. This is why I usually don't cover the hands when I do reviews, because I just kind of assume if you need them for a pose, you're going to have them. But there are fists, and those you do need. I wish he had maybe the classic kind of C-grip hands, not super useful for Wolverine, but they're nice to have in general. That's usually what I put on my figures by default. Going through the unmasked heads, here is the Logan head that comes on the figure straight out of the box. And at first I thought the likeness was maybe a little off, but in reality it's because the other two heads just do a better job of it. There's nothing wrong with this one, but this one I think is a lot better. It's a little bit more stern. You can see the more lines around the eyes. This one just kind of pulls that Hugh Jackman likeness to the surface more successfully than the other head did. And then, of course, the yelling head with, you like the lines on the other one. You'll love the lines on this one. This one is awesome. Yelling heads are so hard to do well, and these guys have just nailed them. Doing some size comparisons, here is, of course, the obligatory Deadpool and Wolverine size comparison. I honestly don't know if this would be considered right or wrong. I think this is accurate. He looks taller just because of the wings on the mask, of course, but he's actually just only slightly taller than Deadpool, which to my recollection feels right, but of course, the comic purist in me is kind of ticking when I see that. Here he is with his kind of mismatched Fox, Sony friends, Netflix friends, and it's kind of funny we have a crew like this, but we don't really have a solid MCU Avengers Mezco crew. But I think these guys look pretty awesome together, despite the fact there's quite a few years between some of these figures. This is the Days of Future Past Logan figure, third party. I think it's Iron Warrior. And I think if you're going to run these two by comparison, I believe that, the Mezco is probably a better scale than this one. Here is the Supreme Knight Batman, who, I hate to say it, but my guy is starting to shrink by comparison to these newer figures. Still, obviously, one of my favorites, but starting to hurt just a little bit. See him look small. Here is the tan and brown Wolverine first release. I think for comic versus cinematic, I think this is still a good scale. And I still think, honestly, their Mezco Logan scale is probably ideal. Here is the previews. No, that was the New York Comic Con version of this figure, with the newer head, of course, but still a very good-looking figure in my opinion. But he is kind of outclassed these days by this sumbitch right here. This is the most recent tin Wolverine with the new heads and the new shoulder pieces, and this is the Wolverine to beat. If you still think you need a Wolverine figure that's not movie-related, it's this guy. If you're at all curious, these are the different claws between the three blue suit Wolverines. The first one on the left, movie in the middle, and then the most recent tin one on the right. So the movie figure has the thinnest and longest by default. And lastly here, just in case anybody was curious, here's that Iron Warrior head on the body. It obviously doesn't fit, just kind of sitting on top of the ball peg. But it's kind of like a peek into an alternate universe or something, like if they put the costume on him for Days of Future Past, maybe. So I already kind of said as much. This is a figure that I'm going to highly recommend because this was not an easy figure to make, I don't think, with the textures and the full coverage of the costume, the shoulder pauldrons. I mean, there's just things about Wolverine costumes that are hard to do in this style and scale, and I think Mezco did an exemplary job. And it's really striking to look at, and I think the way the textures play between the plastic and the vinyl materials is incredibly impressive. Only thing I'd recommend with this guy is, like I said before, take your time with him because you got to break him in a little bit. that's really the only concern I have. Hopefully, like I said earlier, there will be a shot of getting this figure maybe without the sleeves a little later on down the road. But in the meantime, thank you for coming to watch the review. Hope you're able to get one. Thank you to Mezco Toys for sending me one or helping me get one to review. They didn't just send me one. I had to pay money. But thanks for letting me take a look at it. And thanks for watching. I will see you again soon for the next review.